Good morning, welcome back to my channel. I was going to say welcome back to the vlog, but I'm not going to do a vlog today. I think I'm going to try and multitask, but I wanted to put my makeup on and I wanted to talk about my second ectopic pregnancy that I had 3 weeks ago. I wanted to do this for a few reasons. Number one, selfishly, it's quite cathartic speaking about it. Number two, I have enough followers now across my channels that I even had people messaging me being like, we had the same surgery on the same day. And so I think it helps a lot of people not to feel isolated. And ectopics, whilst the NHS says it's only 1 in 80 pregnancies are ectopic, that means that there are thousands of you that will go through them as well. And hopefully this will reach people that don't even follow me. I've got some notes here in case I look over here because I lack structure and I want this to be quite concise. I realise I've kind of gone back to normal content without much content around the fact that I've just gone through this really big thing, which I do want to speak about because I feel like I have learned so much. So that's what we're going to do today. So I wanted to start by going back to my first ectopic pregnancy in October. It was a very strange series of events, but it made me realize how incredible I am at listening to my body and acting on it, which I feel like is going to be the main takeaway from this video. Is like, if you feel like something's off outside of ectopic pregnancy, outside of pregnancies in general, act on it, because I feel like that can change the whole trajectory for your health and potentially your life. And I'm really, really good at doing that. It's something I've learned from my family. I really act on anything that changes. I'm not like a hypochondriac. I like to think I have a good balance. I don't go to the doctor every time I have a tickle in my throat, but a lump, something's off. And that's really what happened in October for me. So I would say we had 2 cycles of trying to conceive before we actually did. The reason why it was off was that I had a period and then I tested. Even the medical professionals are like, why did you test for a pregnancy after you had a period? And I just felt like something was off. My period then also carried on and turned into very light, slightly darker bleeding, and that's when I decided to go to my EPU. So my symptoms were, and you can have an ectopic pregnancy without any symptoms, but I definitely had some so I had some bleeding, but really light, and as I said, darker. And then I also had a slight, it wasn't even like a pain, it was like a stitch. And both ectopic pregnancies have felt a little bit like a stitch in my lower right side. When I say I learned so much stuff, like I learned what an EPU was and that you don't actually need a GP referral to go. So I called up the GP and just said, I have a positive pregnancy test, I have had a period, I'm also still carry on bleeding for a few days, and I've now got a pain in my side. Those are all, like, apart from the period, which was just weird, those were all ectopic pregnancy signs, but I just thought I was having a miscarriage at the time. And so I went to the EPU, which is essentially like an A&E, but for pregnant women in like really early stage, and you can just walk in, or at least my local hospital has a walk-in. So I did that. I waited for 7 hours and then I had a transvaginal scan, which is like totally chill, pretty much like it's painless, like it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's fine. And then they diagnosed me with my ectopic. Massive shock. You know, there are just some moments in your life that you can go back to and you feel so sorry for yourself that you went through that, because I was actually alone at the time. So my other half waited with me for hours and hours, but we had Buster here. And after 3 hours, I was like, you need to go back and look after the dog. I'm sure I'll be fine. I think I'm just having an early miscarriage. And I obviously didn't know that I had an ectopic, but it's really nice to have someone with you when you are diagnosed with an ectopic. But the EPUs are sad. It's just like a room full of women, kind of a lot of them losing babies. So it's just a horrible place to be. And my local one is in a basement and it's a 7-hour wait. So it's like, I was even scared to go to the toilet in case they called my name. You know, at one point I needed to go out for food, and you don't want to miss your place in the queue because otherwise you've missed your place. The first thing that my consultant said when she told me, like, really sorry, but it's an ectopic, put your clothes back on, we'll have a chat, was that ectopics get a really bad rap because they often get found out after you have ruptured. So the real issue with an ectopic pregnancy is, and I don't want to speak medically about too much stuff, I'm obviously not qualified. Yeah, she said they just get a bad rap because you can rupture. So the embryo is growing usually within a tube, but an ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy outside of the uterus. So it can be, I think, in the ovary, it could be like in the abdomen, it can be in a cesarean scar, but most of them are in the fallopian tube. But yeah, she said you obviously haven't ruptured yet, like you know when you rupture because it's an insane amount of pain and your fallopian tube has burst, and then the internal bleeding can cause women to die, which is why ectopic pregnancies are treated as an emergency and they're really important. She was like, because you're here with us, you're not going to rupture. We won't let that happen. Ooh, I don't think I'd get emotional. One sec. Just been through quite a bit. And I also have some health anxiety, which is why I find anything like this quite hard to deal with. But through all my therapy that I had afterwards, my therapist was like, you need to stop negating your health anxiety because it leads you to be really proactive in your health, and it definitely does. And I was actually so grateful to my body, like the fact that I had this bleeding and this pain, and the positive pregnancy test obviously meant that I knew something was wrong and I acted on it. But my second ectopic pregnancy, I didn't have any negative symptoms. We were quite sure that this was like a good one, and it turned out it wasn't. So if I hadn't have been through this first ectopic and had these symptoms and learned so much about it, my second ectopic, if that had been my first experience, I could have well ruptured and not known that it was an ectopic. So in kind of the connecting the dots moments, like it's horrible I've been through too, but I can assign some sense and also value almost to me having gone through an ectopic the first time because of the symptoms, and it enabled me to learn so much. I was put on expectant management, which is when they were like, we actually don't want to operate and take the fetus out of you or remove any tubes or anything because we think your body is resolving it by itself. And again, I think this is official NHS stats, about 50% of ectopics do resolve by themselves without any need for intervention. My second ectopic, that didn't happen. So I've gone down both paths, and I was totally relieved the first time around because I had never even had surgery before. And something important to note actually, my gestational age was 5 weeks and 5 days for my first ectopic. From 6 weeks on, you can rupture, but my consultant that I recently had was like 6 weeks is really, it's very unfortunate if you would rupture that early. So what I learned for the next time was that once we were trying again, that I would be testing so much and tracking my periods on flow and using these pregnancy tests, the ones that show the weeks, the clear blue, not an ad, but that would give me a rough indication of my gestational age so that I could go to the hospital at the right time should this happen again. It did happen again. So I love the ones that tell you the weeks because that gives you like a rough level of your HCG. And for this last ectopic, my HCG went up. So the first time we tested 1 to 2 weeks, and a week after that 2 to 3 weeks, which is why the first ectopic we didn't operate because it wasn't growing. I was going through a miscarriage, and my body was just resolving the pregnancy by itself. This feels very trivial to be doing my makeup and talking about something so important. Yeah, back to first ectopic in October. Coincidentally, it was October the 9th, and from the 9th to the 15th is Birth Loss Awareness Week. So there's like loads of pictures around. I'd like to say at this point as well, on both occasions, and I don't know why, and this is very personal to everyone, but I personally haven't really felt an overwhelming sense of birth loss. It's more been about me and my health and my future fertility. And I think that might sound a bit cold to some people, but I think context is really important. So if your journey is such that you spent so many years and held out hope and then got an ectopic, that will feel so much more like a birth loss than it has done for me. Equally, I found out both of my ectopics pre 6 weeks, so it just didn't feel to me like I had lost something, but the context was different, is all I can say. And something really important, if you are, like I said, if you are worried about anything, you can go for a scan. So my first one was diagnosed. We were just doing bloods. And so you go back every couple of days and they monitor your HCG to check that you're going down. The HCG comes from the embryo itself. So my body was resolving it, and then I had my miscarriage bleed. So that whole process was just 1 week, going from thinking I was pregnant but something was up to being discharged from the hospital. That whole thing was a week, but it was like one of the longest weeks of my life. And then when we got the call to be like, your HCG was, I think I started at about 100 on my first test, which is so low for 5.5 weeks. I was discharged at like 16. And then I had my miscarriage bleed, which was fine for me. It was like a heavy period, and then I just kind of got back to normal life. We took 3 months off, we took a break. This video is definitely gonna be over 10 minutes, isn't it? But we took a break for 3 months. It wasn't necessarily that we needed to, because I obviously hadn't had any surgery. And my consultant said, you know, off the record, we're actually about to publish a study about if you haven't had any surgical intervention, you can try straight away. But mentally, I wasn't ready to. Like, it's really scary, the thought that trying to conceive can like land you in the hospital. It's bizarre to then try and kind of be intimate again and bounce back from that. The last thing I said to my consultant after the ectopic in October was, will I have any symptoms, like what can I expect over the next whilst my body's getting back to normal? And she was like, honestly, nothing, you'll just go back to normal. I didn't go back to normal. I felt a pain, and I felt a pain exactly where my ectopic had been. So to cut a very long story short of me complaining really often about this pain that was there, which I could definitely have said was psychosomatic at the time, I went back to the EPU and had a scan. They found a really small cyst, and they were just like, it will go away and that's fine. And after I had had that scan, the other doctor in the room, once the professor who scanned me had left, was like, that guy's the best scanner in Europe. So I felt like I was in good hands. Fast forward to January, and they give you something at my hospital called a resolution scan to check that the ectopic has totally gone away. There's no scarring, there's no swelling, there's no product can be left. I was like, look, I have had my ectopic in October and it's January now, and I still feel like something is off. And I had another transvaginal scan, and she was like, yeah, you've got a 4 centimeter dermoid cyst in your right ovary. It will have nothing to do with the ectopic. You would have had it from birth. It grows really slowly, but once you reach 5 centimeters, we would recommend that you have it out. And I was like, I knew something was off. Yeah, I guess I was just disappointed that that hadn't been picked up. I'd actually had 3 scans before this January one, and no one had picked up this 4 centimeter cyst, which I think sounds really big. Apparently that's like a medium size, but I would eventually need surgery to have that out. So I kind of had that hanging over me, and it was very like triggering to have that pain exactly where I'd had my ectopic for October, November, December, January, February, March, April. May, 8 months. We got back to trying again. February, it didn't happen for us. March didn't happen for us. April, I got my positive pregnancy test. Again, super quick, which I'm very grateful for, and it gives me some hope for the future. But when you've had loss, and also when you've had an ectopic, finding out you're pregnant again is a really different thing. It's a balance between celebrating and just being realistic about what this could be, and also what it might not be. And so as I said, you know, through various testing, and another thing that I use, which I really recommend, is the Clear Blue. This is the digital ovulation test. It measures your LH, and so we are able to like accurately pinpoint when I'm ovulating. This is good for 2 reasons. A, I think for speeding up the process of actually conceiving, but then B, I just know where everything is in the calendar, and that's really important for me for being able to like age the pregnancy, so that I know when to go and get my transvaginal scan and check where the pregnancy is. And this is what we will do next time. So when you've had an ectopic, you are at a higher risk of having another one. I think it goes from 1 in 80 to then something like 1 in 20, 1 in 10. It's quite a bit higher. Our local NHS hospital is amazing, one of the best. I called them up, I was like, look, I've had an ectopic before. I know that you offer scans, early scans, to people who have had ectopics before. Could I get an appointment for that? And they said no. I'd have to come in and do the whole 7-hour wait. They were like, we're also quite busy at the moment, so it would be at least 6-7 hours. And I just have so much kind of, I guess, trauma from that basement room that I just wanted to see if we could pay for a private scan and do something a little bit quicker. We went to the Portland, which is, funnily enough, where I was born, and we had the most exceptional experience that I have ever had medically. Again, people like that make me emotional because they're so good at their jobs, the care, everything, and they were just the best, the best. Went to see them, got diagnosed with an ectopic. This is 1st of May, this happened. So literally 3 weeks ago today. And again, just a massive shock, and you immediately start thinking, what does this mean for the future? Are we going to need to go straight to IVF? Will this resolve again by itself? Will I need surgery? So I immediately got sent off for bloods, and the bloods came back and my HCG was over 800. My first one, like I said, was 100. We knew it was kind of resolving, but this one was higher. And we kind of knew this as well because of these digital pregnancy tests that we'd been using. The first test was 1 to 2 weeks. A week after that, it was 2 to 3. So like we knew it was growing. That was on the Wednesday. It was at like 5 p.m. after work. We went for the scan and had this amazing doctor who managed to find this tiny ectopic. Again, that was 5 weeks and 3 days. They had diagnosed that. And so sent off for bloods, found out the HCG was super high, and that actually I could have been a case for expectant management again, because the HCG was high, but not like super, super high, but my progesterone was through the roof. I also had lots of lower back ache, which could be to do with the progesterone, but it's also another ectopic symptom. And if you feel anything is off, just go for a scan. Go and sit in your local EPU and just get your peace of mind. And 5.5 weeks is the best time to do that. And by the way, when I say 5.5 weeks, but I'm saying that the test showed up as 2 to 3, it's because I'm talking my 5.5 weeks is my gestational age, which is so important to learn the difference. It includes the time from the first day of your period as part of your pregnancy. Diagnosed with ectopic, super shocked. Had Andy with me there the whole time, which was nice and made a difference. Discussed my options, but they were like, we think you should go in for surgery. One, to get rid of that cyst, which was this kind of looming surgery that I'd have to have at one point anyway, to take out the ectopic, to potentially take out the fallopian tube. They have to, once they get in there, they have to then work out whether to take your fallopian tube out or not based on the health of the other fallopian tube. So like, the main thing that they look at is scarring, and that scars in your tube are blocking the egg from getting down. And I even had my, what would it be, my miscarriage bleed, like cleaned out from my uterus. They gave me the full thing, and it was so nice to get my cyst out at the same time, like to do those 2 ops at the same time. I have the most incredible scars as well that I'd just like to show you, because they are so not scary or squeamish, and they're amazing. Like I asked when I got kind of, you get partnered with your like anaesthetist and your consultant. I hadn't met my consultant until the op day, and I was like, what's she like? And they just said she's the neatest. She's just, she's just amazing at her job. Like, she's just incredible. And I feel so lucky even throughout this process to have met her. Like, I know it's the Portland, it's like the best place in the world, and it's so expensive, and I'm so lucky to be able to afford private medical care. So lucky. But yeah, I'm just so pleased that I met her, because she's incredible. And like, if we, you know, if this happens again, I don't know whether we'll go private or NHS, and if we get to a stage where I'm actually giving birth one day, we'll see. But yeah, she was just amazing. Nothing makes me cry more than the professionals around you that help you get through this. I find that very moving and really yeah, just that's where my emotions come from. The surgery was amazing. It was my first time under a general, which I was kind of scared by. Like, you have no idea how your body's going to react, but mine did amazingly. I recovered super well. The operation ran over by about 20 to 30 minutes, which kind of freaked out my other half, who was waiting for me. I decided it's a day operation, which is amazing. Like, medicine and surgery now feels to me a little bit like magic. Like, the fact that I went in we were up at 3 a.m. We had to be at the hospital for 6 a.m. so we left at 5. I was just like a bag of nerves. Again, like, my health anxiety just came in and kind of took over. I just get very, very shaky and almost like in a state of shock. But we got there, got shown to our room, did some like pre-assessment, and then I was in surgery at 8 a.m. had my first general. My anaesthetist was amazing, and I could hear, like, so you're in like a little bit on a bed before you go through to the theatre, and I was linked up to a heart rate monitor and I could hear it, and my heart rate was just getting faster and faster and faster because I was just so nervous. And then when they brought me round, it's like really hazy. The first thing I did was cry, and I was like on my back. I could see like the anaesthetist, the consultant, who's also the surgeon, over me, and they were just like, it went perfectly. And I was just beside myself. Even though I was so drugged up, I was beside myself with like relief and gratitude for these people who are just amazing at their job. Like, I went in that morning with a pregnancy and a cyst and a scarred fallopian tube, and then a couple of hours later I'm back to normal. And you're a day case, so it's let me show you my scars quickly. I've got 3. So the first one is in my belly button, which you won't be able to see. I can't even see it myself. I have number 2 down here, which essentially just looks a little bit like a scratch. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. And then, don't block me, Instagram, YouTube. I have one here. It's kind of just above my hairline. This one is the bigger one. It's probably about 1 inch long. Can you see that? And then I've got a little bit of bruising underneath it there as well. But it's keyhole surgery, so like recovery is super quick. You're out. You can be a day case if you want. I decided to spend the night just because, again, I know how anxious I can be, and I just wanted to do my first night in a hospital around the nurses. So we had a night there. Andy stayed with me overnight, which was really sweet and not necessary, but it was nice that he didn't really leave my side. Got a cab then back the next day and rested, really. But the surgery was amazing, and then they send you home with painkillers, but then obviously taking painkillers made you constipated, so I had laxatives, so things got quite interesting at home. But I would honestly say that at no point throughout this did I really feel any pain. It was just the most incredible surgery and process. I don't know whether that's the professionals I was working with or the fact it was keyhole, which just sounds like the biggest innovation in medical history ever, or the drugs I was on, but it's really been, touch wood, that's MDF. Damn you, IKEA. That'll be good enough though. Oh, that's wood. It's been a really great healing process mentally and physically. Mentally, I haven't really had that many wobbles at all. And a lot of people are saying that I'm moving on quite quickly, or like that I'm quite stoic, but I feel like I processed so much during my first ectopic, even though arguably this second one was more serious and I had surgery. The first one, I learned so much from the internet. The best 2 sources I want to recommend is number 1 is the Ectopic Trust website. It was originally recommended to me by my first consultant and answered so many questions. I would really recommend that, and if you would like to donate to the cause, they're a charity. Number 2 is Dr. Natalie Crawford, who is consultant gynecologist in the US, and she has taught me a lot about ovulation testing, even a little bit stuff about ectopics. Just trying to get as much medical knowledge as possible and also stay off TikTok. Like, I didn't look at TikTok about ectopics when I had my first one, and I'm really pleased that I did that, because my first experience was actually just kind of, looking back on it, mentally very hard, physically a breeze, that 1 week of like nothing happening. But even this recovery has been like genuinely miraculous. So when we're ready, we're gonna kick it off again. I think still got a lot of hope, and really hoping, I'm calling it my lucky left fallopian tube that I've got left. Didn't say, okay, one of the most amazing things I've learned throughout this process is that there are so many women who will lose a fallopian tube. Your remaining fallopian tube can go to the other ovary and pick up the egg, because obviously you roughly alternate sides that you ovulate from each ovary. But my left one will be able to go over to my right one, pick up the egg, and then the egg from my right ovary can travel down my left fallopian tube, which is the only tube we're operating with now. And hopefully it doesn't have scarring. She couldn't see any scarring from the keyhole surgery, but there's a 1 in 10 chance I will have another ectopic in that tube. We'll see. Who knows what the future holds. But what this means going forward is that I'm going to do exactly what I did last time, testing both with the ovulation test strips and the pregnancy digital ones, the ones that show weeks, and I'll be going back for a scan. If we get pregnant again, we might just not get pregnant again, who knows. Then at 5.5 weeks, go back for a scan and go through the whole process again, and be very prepared for it to be an ectopic and potentially surgery and have my fallopian tube out, in which case we'll then need to look at other options such as IVF or adopting or surrogacy or having a childless life. Childless sounds so like that's just the default way to live. I'm gonna kind of wrap this up now, but I've had so many messages. Like, I actually had to turn off my DMs when I put the first post up, just because I get so many about loss, and it just makes me feel like being pregnant and getting to a full-term healthy pregnancy feels like a very miraculous thing that is not going to happen, because I think once you're part of like this kind of birth loss world, it just feels like this insurmountable challenge to actually reach the finish line. And I wanted to be a bit more hopeful, but I've received so many caring messages, and even people now when they're like, hey, can you link the trousers, hope you're okay by the way. There's always people keeping it in their minds what I've just been through, and so many messages of hope. And I think that's a really great thing about having followers, lots of followers, is that when you go through something, people can tell you, oh, I've been through that as well. So if you're watching and you've lost a fallopian tube or had an ectopic, there is just so much hope. Like, the amount of messages that I've got from women who then went on to have 4 kids with one fallopian tube after losing it through the salpingectomy, I'm gonna say. I think I've pronounced that correct. But just having 1 tube and actually going on. And there's a really sweet comment as well on my post where I announced my ectopic, which said, you know, there's so many messages here of women who've gone on to have children, but I just want to say that sometimes you come out of your fertility journey and you don't have children, and that's okay, and you can still have a happy, wonderful life. And I think life is what you make it. And so if that is us, and I'm very aware of not pushing my body to the extreme in order to get to this having a child moment, that could be a reality for us. And if it is, we're gonna make it the best life possible. So thanks for watching. Well done if you got to the end. I'm so sorry for the rambling, but health and these 2 ectopics that I've been through, I do have so much to say, and I felt like putting on Instagram or TikTok just wasn't enough for me. And I also wanted to get back to vlogging, and I just felt weird without addressing everything that had happened, and I hadn't really even spoken about my first ectopic. So hey, I might be updating you with a 3rd ectopic at some point, who knows. We are staying positive and we are staying hopeful, but also realistic. Just want to leave you with the message that if anything is off with your body, I knew it about my first ectopic, I knew it about my cyst, and I acted on it, and I pushed for second opinions, more scans, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching and for all your kind messages throughout my recovery, and I will see you in the next video, which I hope will be just a really positive, nice, getting back to normal vlog. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.